Moments where you are going to experience failure from different directions, and sometimes it's not your clients, it's not the team members, it's not your stakeholders, it is you, the project manager. And these are avoidable mistakes that I'm going to highlight here today to make sure that you don't fall into it. As a project manager, there are times that you're going to track your tasks, you're active in your project, but you're not being productive. There's a difference in this mindset. You need to have a mindset of creating an impact in every organization that you work in. There is a difference between someone who is constantly giving feedback, making sure that it creates an impact in an organization whose aim is to deliver value. And there are some people who are just going to be tracking their tasks, making sure that everyone is intact, but that is not productivity. You are just being active. That is not leadership. Leadership has to do with having empathy, understanding people, moving with people, make sure that there's not just alignment, but there is an understanding, there is a shared goal, there is a shared vision. In today's video, I'm going to emphasize on 10 things that you need to avoid as a project manager to stay productive in your project. This is Figure Out PM, where we make sure that we break down the message of project management into something you can actually use, and make sure that we bring leadership skills that can enhance the way you lead in every organization and make sure that you stay safe in your projects. Let's figure out this together. So the first mistake that you need to avoid as a project manager is lack of clear goals and scope. You need to have clear goals. You need to make sure that you can sit down with your stakeholders and explain the goal of this project, what we are trying to accomplish, what is the focus, what they are going to benefit, what problem are we solving. You need to make sure that you identify this. Your scope, you need to have a clear scope. Everything that is within your scope, everything that is out of the scope, you need to have an understanding of this. Why? Because you might experience scope creep. And when you start experiencing scope creep, that is the killer of your project. Your project just starts falling down. Everything is just running its own path. There is confusion in the team. So you need to make sure that you have clear goals and a scope. The second thing is poor communication. As a project manager, you need to communicate effectively. You need to know how to engage with your stakeholders. You need to know how to engage with your team members. You need to know their communication channel. You need to know what method is suitable for you to communicate with your team. You need to know who needs soft communication, that empathy, that understanding. It is not all about control, it's about leadership. You need to emphasize that. As a project manager, you're going to see people who don't want to resonate with you, but the way you adapt with them is what makes the difference. Instead of you reacting, you have to respond, because people have different issues. In projects that I've worked in, I've realized that so many people come to work with burdens from their homes, from their relationships. You as a project manager, you have to sit down. You have to understand them, because at the end of the day, the project sponsor is not going to reach out to them. Is going to reach out to you as a project manager to make sure that everything is in conformity with what you are doing. So you need to make sure that you set standards. Poor communication is going to kill your project. The third thing is stakeholders. Ignoring stakeholders is something that you should avoid as a project manager. When we talk about stakeholders, that means we're talking about your clients, this project sponsor, the vendors. Anybody that can impact or affect your project is your stakeholder. So you need to make sure that you constantly engage with them. Why? Because if you don't do that, your project is going to fail. You cannot be building a product where you don't engage with the users of that product. You will not get feedback. At the end of the day, what problem are you solving? You cannot be working on a project where you are not engaging with a project sponsor who is in charge of making sure that everything that you're doing, they are sponsoring for it. So ignoring your stakeholders is very deadly. It's like you're working for an organization that you don't know the people that you're working with or you're working for. So never you estimate the power or the potentials of your stakeholders as a project manager. Leadership in project management is very different. It's a mindset that you embrace because you're constantly solving problems. You're constantly making sure that you meet people's needs. You have to adapt, just like Agile. You have to adapt in so many ways. There are so many projects that you're going to be implementing Agile because the environment constantly change, people constantly change, especially in organizations where the project sponsor or the product owner is never available to really understand what is going on. You as a project manager is the one who is making sure that things are in charge, things are in place. So if you neglect your project sponsor, if you neglect your team members who are your stakeholders, you are going to account for that project. So the fourth point which you have to understand also is that as a project manager, you should not overload yourself. You should learn how to delegate the tasks and trust your team members. Your job as a project manager is not to work into that organization and start performing all those tasks that are supposed to be done by software engineers, the coding. No, I work in organizations where I don't necessarily do any coding. All I have to do is make sure that I track the progress. I delegate the tasks to whosoever has been employed in that company to perform that. My duty is just to make sure that I follow up. We constantly have sprint meeting, daily stand-up to track what we have done. So you need to make sure that you don't overload yourself. Delegate the task and just reach out to people. There are people who are going to be very unappreciative about what you're doing, but that is your job as a project manager. You were not employed in that organization to come and start coding, to come and start designing, to come and start marketing. You were employed to come and make sure that all these things come together, because the managing of people part is something that people don't really get to understand. For you to put people together and create an impact in an organization is something that is very challenging, but people don't get to see that until you are there. So you need to make sure that you understand your role. You have to create value. You have to create impact. Many people don't value the presence of project managers until they don't have one, until there's no one to say that this is what we are supposed to do, this is what we are supposed to do next after this. In a team, it doesn't matter where you are, in school, in a labor room, wherever you are, there must be a leader. That is your job as a project manager. So don't neglect it. The next thing, which is the fifth point, is risk management. As a project manager, if you neglect your risks, they are going to affect your project in a very dramatic way. You need to make sure that you build systems where you can track your risks, you can identify them, and set those risk owners, people who are going to make sure that mitigation goes on. There is proactive identification of risks and solving them. You need to make sure that you solve all those risks as a project manager. Before we move to the sixth point, please, I want you to do me a favor. Please double check if you're a subscriber to this channel. That is the way that makes us understand that what we're sharing is valuable to our listeners out there. And also, that is the free way that you can support us, and we really appreciate that. So thank you for doing that. The sixth point is making sure that you track progress. You need to track progress of your project, making sure that are we aligned with what we said we were going to do? Are we moving towards our goal? Are we still intact with the milestones? Are we still in the budget, or are we out of the scope? You need to make sure that you track this. So you can use tools, right? You can use a dashboard. You can use tools like Trello, which is very easy to use. You share a board with your team members. All your team members ClickUp, Notion, and you just automate all of these things. It constantly updates them what they are supposed to do and when they are supposed to do it. You can move your tasks from in progress to completed, and you just maneuver all of this. It is going to notify everyone based on what you're currently doing. The next thing is planning. As a project manager, you have to spend about 78% of your time planning. Without proper planning, your projects are going to be very devastating. They are going to be very challenging. Now, many project managers just jump into execution without properly moving through the stages of the project management lifecycle. You have to start from the initiation phase. When you start from the initiation phase, you identify the goals, you identify the resources, you identify the people that are involved, who are the ones in charge of this project. From the initiation phase, then you can then go into the planning, you go to the execution, you go to monitoring and control, and then you go to the closing phase. You need to make sure that these stages are well implemented, they are well respected. You don't just jump into execution, because at that point you don't know who is responsible for this. You have to break this down using Gantt charts to better understand this and share it with your team members. The next thing that you have to handle also as a project manager is not avoiding your team dynamics. Conflict is going to happen, there is no doubt about it. But how you resolve it, how you manage it, is what makes the difference. Some people will just need that motivation to keep them going. There are people who are going to have different issues from different directions. You as a project manager, everything becomes your burden. You are going to experience that thing. There's a team member who just wakes up and says, I feel like I can't do it today. You as a project manager, you need to start thinking. You need to start solving problems. Your mindset shifts. You are the owner of that project. You need to make sure that you come out with your solution. Team dynamics is something that is very important for you to understand as a project manager. The next thing is failing to adapt. As a project manager, you need to adapt by all means. It doesn't matter what is happening, you have to adapt. Changes are going to occur. Yes, you have to go through a process called the change control system. But how you work through it is what determines the outcome of your projects. Changes are going to come, you have to adapt. Especially when you're working in an agile space, you need to constantly get feedback and adapt to changes. Adaptability is one of the core skills that you need to embrace as a project manager. So don't neglect adaptability. Involve it, include it, embrace it, and engage with it as a project manager, as a leader who is out to create impact, to deliver value, and to come out with results that can make the change in an organization. And the last point is something that you have to take very important. Make sure that you learn from your past mistakes. That is the last point. That is why documentation is very important in project management. You have to document everything so that you avoid future mistakes. In every project that you work in, it is important that you document everything. Documentation is very important, even to your stakeholders. If anyone works in an organization and asks you, what have you been up to this time? You should be able to explain. You should be able to sit down and read out the experiences that you have had, the lessons that you have learned from that project, so that you don't make future mistakes. You need to document. You need to learn from your mistakes. So those are 10 things that you have to learn as a project manager. You have to avoid as a project manager. You have to learn them and understand these 10 things so that you don't fall a victim of a failed project. If anything I've shared with you today resonated, if it sparked a thought, a question, or even just a feeling, then hit that subscribe button. And my promise to you alongside with my team is very simple: to consistently bring you real, honest, and valuable content that helps you figure out project management one conversation at a time. Thank you for being here. See you next week.